How do you do? Mr. Brian Peters feels it would be a little unkind to present this podcast, gravely amusing, without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold an episode from the mind of Brian Peters, a fan of pop culture who sought to create a podcast after his own image, without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest podcasts ever listened to. It deals with two great fandoms of pop culture, humor, and horror. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such strain, now's your chance to, well, we warned you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Gravely Amusing, the only horror history podcast that finds Miss Trunchbull from Matilda sexy as F. I'm your host, the one and only man-child of mystery, Brian Peters. We are now in season 2 of Gravely Amusing, and it's a new chapter of horror, the 1950s and the rise of sci-fi. We got aliens, bug-eyed monsters, Vincent Price, Ed Wood, The Twilight Zone, and of course, kaiju films. So if you listened to us last week, we talked about the king of monsters, Godzilla. Today, we're talking about the eighth wonder of the world, the female mind. Wait. No, I'm sorry. That's the first wonder of the world. We'll never realize that. Now, today we're talking about the eighth wonder of the world, the other king in the Monsterverse, King Kong Bundy. And with me is the man that I call the Steve Weiser, my cousin Steve. What's up, man?
Not much, just trying to stay warm with all the snow coming down.
Yeah, like I don't know what's going on with weather nowadays. Like I don't want to say that I'm a big like global warmer believer. Like, because we don't not gonna get into politics here. This is horror history stuff. But I have to say, in 30 years ago, in 1994, when we had that blizzard in Pittsburgh area, and like I don't think I was 6'2" yet. I think I was like 5 foot something. I don't know. I didn't hit puberty yet, so but I remember the snow being so tall, and like you and me going sledding. Like that was an awesome winter for us. Like our parents were just miserable.
Oh my god, yeah! I remember jumping off my deck and just landing in snow because it was so high. It was awesome.
Yeah, and that was before Jackass came out.
Yeah.
But all I could say is that 30 years ago we got serious snow. Even 20 years ago we got serious snow. But these past 10 years or so,
I don't know if you were still in the area or if you were out in Ohio by this point, but we had got a wild amount of snow. I would say, oh my god, a lot of years ago. I was living in Latrobe, and I literally had to dig a drive-through spot for my car, and I couldn't see on the other side because of the wall of snow that was there.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it was bad.
The last blizzard that I dealt with was I think it was in 2010. Yeah, it was in 2010. 2010, I was living in Uniontown, Pennsylvania at the time, and I was working for the Salvation Army, and the blizzard was so bad in the Brownsville and Uniontown area and Morgantown type area, that like this power went out at a nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to take all these nursing home patients to like emergency shelter and take care of them for like a week. and one guy had Alzheimer's. We had to bring in nurses and stuff, and we set out a base at a school,
Yeah.
and we were like taking care of people in school, and like that was the roughest week of my life. Yeah,
yeah. Luckily, I was at home, but my one boss tried to get me to come in while driving a little Chevy Cavalier. I'm like, if you could come out here and get my car out, I'll go in. But I don't know. I didn't make it in for, I think, 2 days. The guy that was stuck at work had to stay there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was
Oh my God.
bad.
So like, did you have to dig a trench around your car just to get to it? Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It took me to dig out my car when I got home after that week. I think it took me about like 3 to 4 hours.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like 1 hour was just straight getting to the car.
Yep.
And then another hour was getting all the snow off, and then 2 more hours digging all the snow that I just took off.
Mm-hmm. It was terrible.
It was horrible. It's like you need somebody with a 10 strength and a shovel. Maybe we need to hire monkeys or something.
Yeah.
You know,
King Kong.
Maybe we need King Kong. See how I did that? So in this season, we are discussing the 1950s, and we're talking about the dawn of sci-fi, and we're talking about new movies as they come out, because we gotta stay relevant. As we do a little more of it's back in the history, but we have to stay relevant for the kids.
Yeah.
Who are these boomers talking about? We're not boomers, we're millennials. Shut up. but these kids are. So last season we talked about 1930s films, and yes, like we're fully aware that King Kong came out in 1933, and we're talking about the 50s. Yeah, I know, but I held on to this film because it pairs with Godzilla well, and the new Godzilla Kong movie is coming out. So there's always a reason for what I do. There always is. So, and you have to admit, if you've seen King Kong the original, it's ahead of its time. Like, it is not like any other 1930s movies. It's way ahead of its time in what it was doing. And like when it came out in 1933, it did okay, but it didn't do as well if it was released in 1952. Because when it was re-released in 1952, it did awesome. Like, it did way better than it did in 1933. So, and as we stated in the last episode, like King Kong paved the way so that Godzilla could exist. If it wasn't for King Kong, Godzilla wouldn't be here. And so many other monster movies, like King Kong, set the precedent. He is the true king of the kaiju, in my opinion. He's like the father of the kaijus. And you know what? That makes me wonder, Steve. Like, did he get some action from these tribal women? Like, because like,
hey, yeah,
because you're watching the movie, and like you've seen all these tribal women, and like they're, and like they sacrifice them to him, and he really likes women,
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah,
and like but I don't know if these women could be the mother of kaijus, because
yeah,
Kong is really big,
yeah,
yeah.
I
She couldn't handle the size of his banana.
No, not at all.
But you should have stopped me when I went on that tangent, man.
Sorry.
It's all right, man. But this episode, like I said, we're talking about the history of King Kong. So we're following King Kong to his first reboot. He first gets a reboot in King Kong versus Godzilla in the 60s. So we're just following Kong in the 50s here and things that he inspired. So we're talking King Kong, and we're talking Son of Kong, and then we're going to talk about Mighty Joe Young a little bit. I know it's not a horror movie, but King Kong inspired it, and there's a reason why I'm talking Mighty Joe Young. You'll see. So, King Kong did get rebooted in the 60s with King Kong Godzilla. He got rebooted in the 70s. He got rebooted in 2005 with Peter Jackson. he's like a mother of all reboots, so father of all reboots, and nearly puts Batman to shame because I think Batman is like the number one character that's been rebooted the most
Yeah, I would
or
have to
remade.
agree with that. Yeah.
Like I was talking to Tyler about like what has been rebooted the most,
Yeah.
and I think it's Batman.
Yeah, you figure there's what?
So there's two in the serials
Okay.
in the 30s and 40s.
Okay.
Lewis something played him, and then some other guy played him when they did Batman or Robin serial, and then we have Adam West.
Yeah.
So we have Adam West, and then we have Michael Keaton, and then Val Kilmer,
George
and then
Clooney.
George Clooney, and then we have Christian Bale.
Yes.
Then we have the kid that in Gotham.
Oh, okay, Little Bruce. Okay.
Little Bruce. There you go, Little Bruce. And then we have Ben Affleck,
Ben Affleck, and then
we have
Robert
Pattinson.
Pattinson.
And then if you want to count cartoons,
Oh
if you do count
God.
cartoons,
Yeah.
we're talking like 15 times.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
something like
He
that.
has to be the most. Yeah.
Yeah, he has the most different versions, absolutely. So he puts Batman to shame because, like I said, like he was rebooted in '62 with Godzilla verse, if you will, rebooted in '76 with the film with Jeff Bridges, rebooted in 2005, and then rebooted finally in 2017 as he enters the monster verse with Legendary. So, all right, Steve, let's get to it. Listeners, welcome to the jungle. Welcome to the jungle. We got fun and games. We got everything you want. I know the names. We are the people that can find whatever you may need. If you got the money, honey, we got your disease in the jungle. Welcome to the jungle.
You're a lot braver than me to sing.
Yeah, I did a lot of cocaine before this. So. All right,
jeez.
so we bring us to our segment, another '80s tribute. A thing that we like to call "I Pee the Fool." This is where we give you just enough about a subject so that you don't look like a fool if you're among geeks and they want to quiz you on King Kong. So, Steve Weiser, I probably need to stop talking because I'm starting to sing and I'm saying stupid stuff. So, Steve Weiser, who is King Kong?
Well, King Kong. Well, spoilers here for 91-year-old film. King Kong is a kaiju that is a giant gorilla. And Brian and I are still waiting for the gorilla whale monster, by the way, which would be fantastic.
Yes, please. So
you just need to do it.
You just need to do it. And if you don't know what we mean, you need to listen to last
listen to the Godzilla episode if you didn't get that reference. The King of the Beasts, which is Kong is considered, usually lives on a hidden island surrounded by fog with a mountain shaped like a skull. I believe, hasn't there sometimes it's not necessarily fog, there's been storms, or am I not thinking of that right?
There's usually like fog, storms. Like sometimes the island has just been like there's been a mountain that's a skull,
and
sometimes it's just called Skull Island, whatever.
Yeah.
But like sometimes the islands are shaped
from
like
a top view,
map,
yeah,
like a bird's eye. Yep.
Due to this, this island is often called Skull Island. Kong is usually worshipped by the local tribe on the island as a god, which in this old 1933 one is kind of weird, but
yeah, it's weird. It sure is.
A character called Carl Denham in the first one would advertise him as the 8th wonder of the world. Not to be confused with the first Wonder World, as Brian mentioned earlier, the female brain, which is still
world's greatest
not
mystery.
Discovered. Yep. Still have no idea what's going on up in there. Or the 9th wonder of the world, China, which again has a female brain. So
yeah, China was like the 9th and the 1st.
Yeah. Yep. Never knew what they were gonna do.
Absolutely not.
His first appearance was actually in the novelization of the 1933 film King Kong from RKO Pictures, which the film would come out 2 months later. There are a few.
That's interesting because like I didn't know that. I didn't know there was a novelization. I couldn't find it anywhere. But like a lot of movies nowadays, superhero movies, they'll like drop a couple comics and like to get you pumped for the movie,
Yeah, for like a prequel or something.
but they won't have anything to do with the movie, and
No,
nothing will
not
be
at all.
mentioned in it. Like
Yeah.
like when the Flash came out, perfect example. Like you got these issues where they explain his new suit, and then they
Mhm.
explain like how he got the ring, but then the
Mhm.
movie was just it was rough.
Yeah.
but
And I
but
and I just found out, I didn't know this before, but Godzilla and I believe Godzilla Raids Again or Raids there's a book to that too.
really,
Yeah, I think I saw it on Amazon or something.
I didn't know that.
I'm pretty
We, sh-
sure, yeah, it was
we
coming
should
out.
get it.
I was thinking about it to read. I like to read those type books. So,
Yeah, huh? The more you
but
know.
yeah, Rainbow.
Rainbow.
Um, there are a few differences from the film and the novel, but what novel and film doesn't differ in some ways.
Right.
In the novel, the character Carl Denham is only referred to as Denham or Mr. Denham. Sorry, his first name is never revealed.
First
Um,
name is probably Pants.
hmm?
Pants Denim.
Pants,
Or Denim Pants.
Denim Pants,
Ah,
creator of Denim Pants.
Denim Pants.
The ship the characters take to the island is called the Wanderer rather than the Venture, and Skull Island is also called Skull Mountain Island. The novel features an octopus insect, a huge spider who do not appear in the film also.
Wait, an octopus insect.
Insect and a
It's like
huge spider.
so a huge spider and an octopus insect. What the hell is an octopus insect?
I would
I would want to
guess,
have saw that.
yeah, that would have been interesting, but I guess an insect that has
Octopus
arms,
tendencies.
yeah, like its legs have the suction cups and stuff. Maybe it could go in and out of water, I guess. I don't know. That's an odd combination.
I don't know. We're talking about King Kong,
In
banging
the
chicks.
third, yeah. Oh, yeah,
we
that's
need to
true.
worry about octopuses banging insects.
Oh my god.
Oh, jeez.
Way ahead of their time with these creations.
Exactly.
But most of the trip from New York City to Skull Island that is documented in the film is in the book makes sense. And the end is different. In the film, Kong falls off the Empire State Building, while in the novel, he jumps off to grab one of the airplanes, fighting to the end. Oh, really? In the book, that's different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I
Like,
didn't know.
and I think like Peter Jackson took from that. Because I remember like Peter Jackson's like he has King Kong jump really high and like grab a plane with his hand and stuff.
Really? I thought it was the same where he got shot and he just
Oh, he totally
fell.
gets shot. But like I remember more in my head that there was a scene where like he like kind of jumps a little bit, or maybe I'm wrong.
Or maybe
I don't know.
while he's holding on, he reaches to try to grab like the SWAT at him and stuff. I haven't seen
Maybe.
that movie in so long, so yeah.
Yeah, me neither. But we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. In cinema, the character of King Kong has become one of the world's most famous icons. He has a few sequels, remakes, spin-offs, imitators, parodies, cartoons, books, comics, video games, theme park rides. What video games did he have?
I don't know. Well, it's the 360 game. That was a big one.
That was
When Xbox 360 came out, like one of their main selling points was King Kong the video game.
really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
It's like
yeah, I didn't have
I
that.
think it's all first person.
I'll have to look into that one.
That's a pretty dope game. It was
Is
pretty
it?
dope.
Okay. He's faced Hulk Hogan in the main event of WrestleMania 2 in a steel cage.
Steel cage, baby.
Which
Steel cage.
Hulk probably still won for all the
course he did.
Hulkamaniacs out there.
Oh yeah, you don't have that wrestling history in your brain.
Okay, I think I know. King Kong Bundy is who you're talking about.
Yeah, King Kong Bundy. That's who we're talking about. Same guy. Same
Yeah,
guy.
my wrestling knowledge doesn't go back that
He
far.
main evented against Hulk Hogan because
Okay.
like they need someone big for him to
Yeah.
face. So they in WrestleMania 2 they got King Kong Bundy, face him in a steel cage because it's a big gorilla, and like King Kong Bundy has also been on Married with Children. Like it's the same guy, King
Same
Kong
guy
Bundy. That's what we're talking
everywhere.
about.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
King Kong also has crossed over to other franchises such as Godzilla, of course, Planet of the Apes, has encountered pulp comic characters Doc Savage and Tarzan, and he's even faced the Justice League.
Oh yes, he has.
Um,
In the most recent comic, I think they're even making King Kong a Green Lantern.
yeah, I did see that.
That's pretty freaking dope.
I still don't agree with your about Godzilla, but that's a whole different topic.
That is a whole different topic, but if King Kong is going to be a Green Lantern, which makes it makes perfect sense. King Kong would be a Red Lantern.
No, yellow fear, yellow.
No.
But he's never really been depicted as a villain like Godzilla has in the past,
That is
and
true,
even in the present with -1.
he has never been depicted as a villain.
Yeah. He's mostly an anti-hero or a tragic characters. In these sequels and remakes, we have also had more than one Kong. An immediate sequel
Yes, sir.
that same year of 1933 called The Son of Kong gave us Little Kong. Toho then gave us,
So, which makes me wonder if they're going to like draw for this new King Kong Godzilla movie, if they're going to draw a little bit from Son of Kong.
What with that?
Like where this is his
ape.
kid. Yeah, with this small ape, this albino ape and stuff. Because Son of Kong, it was albino ape.
Yeah.
If they're pulling from that, I don't know, or doing a tribute, little Easter egg or something.
Probably a little pull from it.
Yeah.
But Toho then gave us King Kong vs. Godzilla, featuring a giant Kong battle, Godzilla, which we will discuss in a few weeks.
We will.
Toho also gave us King Kong Escapes, which is loosely based on the Rankin Bass The King Kong Show, which aired 1966 to 69. In this, King Kong faces a Robo Kong.
See, I can't wait. I can't wait to watch that. So if the names Rankin Bass don't sound familiar to you, they made Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Oh.
And they made Frosty the Snowman. So
okay, there's classic ones.
So the King Kong show, I'm going to try to find some clips of it somehow. I assume it was probably claymation.
Oh yeah.
Because how they do stuff.
Yeah.
But I did find the DVD of King Kong Escapes. It's supposed to be the story right after King Kong versus Godzilla. And I found it on Blu-ray because it wasn't streaming on anywhere. And the cover shows like a Robo Kong versus and King Kong on the cover. Like it looks wild. So I bet you it's gonna be horrible. But
yeah. But
but it's like the final King Kong movie where you don't see him for like 10 years until they reboot him again in the Jack Bridges movie. Yeah. So that's why we'll cover that. Okay. But yeah. So what else? Nice. What else? Tell me more about King Kong.
Well, King Kong was directed and written by Hishiro Honda. If that name is familiar, we thank you for listening to our Godzilla episode because he was the director of Gojira, the original Godzilla film. My mind is already on Ghostbusters.
We're already right. We're talking that next week, buddy. but that's crazy. Like Hishiro Honda, like kind of directing Godzilla, except for Raids Again. He didn't do Raids Again because they got somebody else. But like him kind of taking the reins of monster movies for Toho. So yeah, way to go.
Oh, nice. Let's see. King Kong would have another reboot or remake again in '76, directed by John Guillermin, and it had Jeff Bridges in it.
John Guillermin.
John Guillermin. And Jeff
all right.
Bridges in it. Yeah, I'm terrible.
One of Jeff Bridges' first movies.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Nice. Nice. And then a sequel would come about, King Kong Lives, followed a decade later, featuring a Lady Kong and Linda Hamilton from The Terminator.
Oh, boy. Pre-Terminator years. Oh, no. This would have been right after Terminator, because that was like in 86.
Yeah. Then another remake of the original, this time set in 33, was released in 2005 by filmmaker Peter Jackson, which had Jack Black in it as the denim role.
Jack Black, Adrian Brody.
Yeah.
I can't forget
Naomi what? No, not Watson. Naomi. I think it was Naomi something. But
I played the blonde haired girl.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
But
that movie was very cinematic.
Yes.
But it's Peter Jackson.
Oh yeah, Lord of the Rings. That
right.
It
coming right off the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Then another reboot would come about, known as Kong Skull Island, which came out in 2017, which is set in 1973 and is a part of what we know now as the Legendary Entertainment's Monsterverse. This would begin with a reboot of Godzilla in 2014, which I thought was pretty good. And we then get a new Godzilla vs. Kong in 2021 with this new universe. And now, later in this year, we'll get where they've been working together in this film against foes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see them actually working together. We got that a little bit at the last one against Mechagodzilla. But I'm very interested to see if we're going to get if they're this is what they should have freaking done with. Well, it's what they're going to do with the Snyderverse with Batman and Superman. Have them kind of face each other and then build work together.
Yeah.
But that's a whole other topic and a whole other podcast that's already been done. Anyway.
But I mean, you kind of see it in the trailer there, where he jumps on Godzilla's back and holds on while they're running at something.
It's gonna be badass. It's gonna be totally
I'm excited. Badass. I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right. So, how did Kong come to be?
Tell me, Steve. Tell me.
Marion C. Cooper, at the age of just 6 years old in 1899, was given a book from his uncle called Explorations and Adventures in the Equatorial Africa. The book was written The book was written in 1861 and told adventures of Paul du Chaillu in Africa and his encounters with the natives and wildlife there. Cooper became fascinated with the stories involving the gorillas, in particular, du Chaillu's depiction of a particular gorilla known for its extraordinary size, that the natives described as invincible and the king of the African forest. When du Chaillu and some natives encountered a gorilla later in the book, he described it as a hellish dream creature that was half man, half beast. Kind of like Bigfoot.
Exactly like Bigfoot.
When he became an adult...
Glad you said that, because a couple months we will be talking about Bigfoot.
Nice.
Yes.
I like that stuff.
People have been wanting that episode.
Yeah. But when he became an adult, Cooper became involved in the motion picture industry. While filming The Four Feathers in Africa, he came in contact with a family of baboons that gave him the idea to make a picture about primates. A year later, when he got RKO, Cooper wanted to film a horror
When he got an RKO? So Randy Orton's time traveling before RKOs.
Yeah, when he got the name of the production company, RKO, yes.
The production company that made the movie, RKO.
Yeah.
Randall Kenneth Orton. Yeah.
As the story was being worked out, Cooper decided to make his gorilla giant sized. The idea of Kong featuring warplanes on top of a building came from Cooper seeing a plane fly over the New York Insurance Building, then, at the time, the tallest building in the world. Cooper came up with the ending before the rest of the story, stated, "Without conscious effort of thought, I immediately saw him in my mind's eye, a giant gorilla on top of a building." Cooper continues, "I also had it firmly in my mind to giantize both the gorilla and the Komodo dragons to make them feel really huge. However, I always believed in personalizing and focusing attention on one main character, and from the very beginning, I intended to make the gigantic gorilla no matter what else I surrounded him with. When designing King Kong, Cooper wanted him to be a nightmarish gorilla monster. He, as
It
he
didn't. I don't think that really happened. Like, he wasn't nightmarish.
No, not at all.
But which you'll tell me why. Tell me why. Oh, sorry.
As he described Kong in a 1930 memo, his hands and feet had the size and strength of steam shovels. His girth is that of a steam boiler. This is a monster with the strength of 100 men, but more terrifying is the head, a nightmare head with bloodshot eyes and jagged teeth set under a thick mat of hair, a face half beast, half human. Yeah,
That's
I don't believe
describing
he
my
had.
sister. That's exactly describing my sister.
Oh my god, that's funny. But I don't think he had that in the film. That I
Not at all.
I don't think he had the sharp. I don't even know if we really
Nope.
saw his teeth.
Uh-uh.
And his eyes just
Nope.
kind of
Not
look
even
like
close.
Godzilla's around there, just big and yeah.
Yep. Which you're gonna. It's why.
Artist Willis O'Brien created a painting depicting the giant gorilla menacing a jungle heroine and hunter for Cooper. However, when it came time for O'Brien and Marcel Delgado to sculpt the animation model, Cooper decided to backpedal on the half-human look for the creature and became adamant that Kong be a gorilla. O'Brien, on the other hand, wanted him to be almost human, like to gain audience empathy, and told Delgado to make that ape almost human. Cooper laughed at the end result, saying it looked like a cross between a monkey and a man with a very long hair. Which kind of looks like Bigfoot.
My sister.
Yeah. That too. For a second model, O'Brien again asked Delgado to add human features but to tone it down somewhat. The end result, which was rejected, was described as looking like a missing link, like Bigfoot or something. Which,
like Bigfoot? Bigfoot?
Bigfoot.
Bigfoot. Boogie.
With this time change, it's early.
Yeah. Anyway.
Disappointed, Cooper stated, "I wanted Kong to be the fiercest, most brutal, monstrous damn thing that has ever been seen." So on December 22nd, 1931, Cooper got the dimensions of a bull gorilla from the American Museum of Natural History, telling O'Brien, "Now that's what I want." When the final... I've never even heard of a bull gorilla.
I don't know what a bull gorilla looks like.
Maybe that's what they called a silverback back then?
I don't know. Everybody Google that. Google that, everybody.
Yeah.
See what it looks like.
Let us know in the comments if that's true or not. Let me see here. I lost my space. When the final model created, it had the basic look of a gorilla, but managed to retain some human-like qualities. Delgado streamlined the body by removing the distinctive paunch and rump of a gorilla. O'Brien would incorporate some characteristics and nuances of an earlier creature that he had created in 1915 for the silent short, the dinosaur, and the missing link into the general look and personality of Kong, even going as far to refer to the creature as Kong's ancestor. When it came time to film, Cooper agreed that Kong should walk upright at times, mostly in the New York scenes, in order to appear more intimidating.
So, do you feel that King Kong is really a horror movie?
No, not
Or do
at
you
all.
feel it's something like totally different?
No, I wouldn't consider that a horror movie. I would consider it more like an action, I guess, type movie. I don't know. I wouldn't say
I don't
horror.
know. Like, okay, so first of all, we know King Kong doesn't have these fangs. He doesn't have bloodshot eyes.
Nope.
He's very humanistic.
Yep.
And the reason these changes went through is because you have your animator and producer like seeing things one way, and then you have your director and writer seeing things another
The
way.
other way, yeah.
Like they definitely couldn't come onto terms with anything.
And then they add in they wanted people to feel empathy for him. Well, I'm not going to feel empathy for a horror guy.
Nope.
You know what I
Did you
mean?
feel any empathy for King Kong in -1?
No.
Nope. Did you feel any empathy for King Kong in the original Gojira? No.
No.
Why? Because it was a horror movie.
Yep, exactly.
It was a monster. Like King Kong, like the original King Kong, it was it was like an adventure movie. It was an adventure movie. It was, I mean, it was a monster movie though, so we have to throw it in here for history. But horror movie, no. King Kong has never been really a horror movie.
No, not at all.
Never.
Not through any of the adaptations.
No, because there's nothing evil about him.
Mm-mm.
Like he's sympathetic because that's the way they made him. But
he's just trying to live his life, but people keep bothering the hell out of him.
Yeah, and hang out with chicks. That's all he wants. He just wants a woman and a nice banana. That's all he wants.
Basically, he's the Hugh Hefner of
Hugh Hefner
monsters.
Dude.
So yeah.
Oh my god.
All those women and the correlations there.
Let's
maybe Kong with all those women gave us Hugh Hefner.
My gosh, you sick bastard.
But yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, definitely not horror. He's not at all.
So how did Hefner Kong get his name?
Well, let me tell you. Cooper said he was very fond of a strong, hard-sounding words that started with the letter K. Some of his favorite words were Komodo, Kodiak, and Kodak.
This episode of Gravely Amusing is brought to you by the letter K and the number 1, because Gravely Amusing is number 1.
That's right. But when Cooper was envisioning his giant horror film gorilla idea, he wanted to capture a real gorilla from the Congo and have it fight a real Komodo dragon on Komodo Island.
That's so many K words. King Kong, Komodo.
Yeah, it's like dragon. A tongue twister.
Whatever.
Yeah. This scenario would eventually evolve into Kong's battle with the T-Rex on Skull Island, when the film was produced a few years later by RKO, the publishing company, not Randy Orton.
Oh my gosh, King! RKO out of nowhere.
RKO. Cooper's friend Douglas Burden's trip to the island of Komodo and his encounter with the Komodo dragons was a big influence on the Kong story. Dude basically became absolutely obsessed with the Komodo dragons and the letter K. That gave him the idea to name the giant ape after a dog toy that's supposedly indestructible, Kong. He loved the name as it had a mystery to it. Hey, that's where I'm going with. But but the indestructible, I don't know. My dogs destroy that crap. So we know how to name. However, British mystery writer Edgar Wallace was contracted to write the first draft of the screenplay. He wanted to title the movie simply as The Beast. Executives were unimpressed with the boring title. Yeah, that just sucks. David O. Selznick suggested Jungle Beast as the film's new title, but Cooper was unimpressed and wanted to name the film after the main character. He stated,
Brock Lesnar. If you're gonna name it the Beast, just name it Brock Lesnar.
"Yeah,
Yeah, he loves them
Beast
women.
incarnate." He stated he liked the mystery word aspects of King's name and that the film should carry the name of the leading mysterious, romantic, savage creature of the story, such as with Dracula and Frankenstein.
See that? So that that's interesting. Like, how, like you can see here how past horror influences new horror. Like they want that name to be like you think of Frankenstein. Well, I mean, when I hear Frankenstein, I think Universal Horror. When I hear Dracula, I hear Universal Horror. You know, you want
Yeah.
that franchise to be synopsis with that studio. So
Mhm.
you know, King Kong was just something totally different than those 1930s Dracula and Frankenstein. You know, it was so ahead of its time. So, you know, why? So that's why it did so well, re-releasing in the 50s and inspiring Godzilla and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So the movie named The Beast sucked, which yeah, I agree with. So RKO sent a memo to Cooper suggesting the titles Kong, King of the Beast, Kong, the Jungle King, and Kong, the Jungle Beast, which combined his and Selznick's proposed titles. At this time, as time went on, Cooper would eventually name the story simply Kong, while Ruth Rose was writing the final version of the screenplay. Because David O. Selznick thought that audiences would think the film
You're cracking me up here. You're
What?
cracking me up here. Like the last name is Selznick, and like you're looking at it, you're like Solis, Slippy, Slappy, Swanson, and then right now you're just like Selznick.
It takes
Like
me a
you,
while. Come
like
on,
you're
man. It
like
takes
you're
me a
having
while.
like you're having like selective moments of knowing these names. These aren't the Japanese names.
I know. I have trouble with names all around, so
Your wife's name is Emily.
yeah.
Your children's
And do you
are
know
named
that?
Darren and Charlotte. Okay.
Sometimes I call them by their other names, sometimes by accident.
Keep it PG. Keep it PG.
Getting old, those names are going away.
All right. Anyway, King Kong.
Let's see.
Dave, you were. I think you said Selznick. That was the last.
Selznick thought that audiences would think that the film, with the one-word title of Kong, would be mistaken as a docudrama like Grass and Chang, which were one-word title films that Cooper had earlier produced. He added the King to Kong's name in order to differentiate.
Wise decision.
Yeah.
Wise decision.
And the name King Kong was born.
But Steve, what can Kong do?
Oh, I'm gonna tell you. In his first appearance in King Kong 33, Kong was a gigantic prehistoric ape. He had a humanoid look and at times walked upright. Like most apes, Kong possesses semi-human intelligence and great physical strength and an eye for the ladies. Kong's size, King Kong's size changes drastically throughout the film, mostly because of the tech of the time. While creator Marion C. Cooper envisioned Kong as being 40 to 50 foot tall, this was a big issue. Animator Willis O'Brien and his crew built the models and set scaling Kong to be only 18 feet tall on Skull Island and rescaled to be 24 feet tall in New York. This did not stop Cooper from playing around with Kong's size as he directed some special effects sequences. By manipulating the sizes of the miniatures and the camera angles, he made Kong appear a lot larger than O'Brien wanted, even large as 60 feet in some scenes. Cooper would say in an interview, it was a great believer in constantly changing Kong's height to fit the settings and the illusions. His different in almost every shot. Sometimes he's only 8 feet tall, 18 feet tall, and sometimes 60 feet tall or larger. This broke every rule that O'Brien and his animators had ever worked with, but I felt confident that if the scenes moved with excitement and beauty, the audience would accept any height that fitted into the scene. For example, if Kong had only been 18 feet on the top of the Empire State Building, he would have been lost like a little bug. A constant constantly juggled the heights of the trees and dozens of other things. The one essential thing was to make the audience enthralled with the character of Kong so that they wouldn't notice or care that he was 18 feet high or 40 feet high, just as long as he fitted the mystery and excitement of the scenes in action, which I didn't notice. I didn't
You didn't notice?
really notice the change in
I
size.
noticed.
Did you?
Yeah, well, I'm deaf, so I'm a very visual guy.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
like there, like like some scenes, I think like the scene that probably stands out the most, or the scenes that stand out the most, are when Kong's fighting one of the dinosaurs,
Mm.
like right in front of him, and they're kind of standing right there, and then like Kong kills it, and they're standing right by it where they could touch the creature, and then like as they walk, the creature kind of like the proportions don't work because we were right here, like right next to it when we started, and then as they walk, like the Stegosaurus or whatever is like so far away. Like it's important to get like proportion right and depth
Yeah.
because like if in one scene Kong can't reach somebody that's in a cave below him because he's not long enough, but then a few scenes later he's climbing a Empire State Building and he's grabbing like someone out of a window and his arm is like 70 feet long, like you know it's I mean it, I, in the times you could get away with that stuff,
Yeah,
as you're doing
definitely.
different scenes and stuff and depth and proportion. But like, so last night I watched King Kong versus Godzilla, and which we'll talk about in about 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. But what what was crazy about that movie is this the first King Kong movie in color, and it's the first Godzilla movie in color. And I think like with black and white, you could just get away with a little bit more because it
Yeah.
kind of blends in the background. Everything's kind of
Yep.
the same color. But so like, and they were doing stop motion. Like you can get away with a little bit
Yeah,
more.
you could hide that stuff better.
But when you pop it into color and everything's different colors and it doesn't blend in, and it doesn't work. It just
Yeah.
won't work. But I don't like the inconsistency of the sizes of stuff, but it doesn't take away from it being a great movie. It really is
No,
a great.
not at all.
Yeah.
Let's see here. The Kong bust made for the film was built in scale with a 40-foot ape, while the full-size hand of Kong was built in scale with a 70-foot ape, which you kind of mentioned earlier.
Like yeah, like it's so I don't know, it's so
It's
inconsistent.
yeah, it's a big difference. Promotional materials listed Kong's official height as 50 feet. So when we talk about the first King Kong vs. Godzilla, we will go into the licensing and ownership rights issues that the character King Kong has.
Yeah, things get really crazy as we enter the 60s, and we talk about like the rights of King Kong. Like it's a lot of drama, which but we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But anyway, what movies was he in?
He was in the following films. He was in King Kong, which came out March 2nd, 1933, which is close to my birthday. But then Son of Kong came out December 22 in the same year, 33.
That's
And
crazy.
then you wouldn't get another one for 9 years when it comes out King Kong vs. Godzilla, which aired August 11th, 1962. And then you would get 5 years later King Kong Escapes, and then a big jump to King Kong, which came out December 17th, 1976, followed by King Kong Lives another 10 years later, December 19th, 1986. You would get the Peter Jackson one, December 14th, 2005, simply called King Kong. And then you would get what we know now with the MonsterVerse, King Kong Skull Island, which came out March 10th, 2017, followed by Godzilla vs. Kong, March 24th, 21, and then the new one, which hasn't come out yet, Godzilla X Kong, The New Empire, which is set to release March 29th, 2004. Or 2024, sorry.
Time travel.
Yeah, I'm having troubles with time today.
And
Also-
Selzniak.
Yeah.
Time and
Time in that name.
Yes.
TV shows, 4 of them actually have been based on King Kong as well. The King Kong show in 1966, Kong, the animated series in 2000, Kong, King of the Apes 2016, and then lastly, Skull Island in 2023. The character
I have not watched any of those shows.
No, I didn't even know they had
I do remember the Kong cartoon though, because I think it was on WB, maybe who knows.
See, the only one I remember is the Godzilla cartoon.
Yeah, I remember that.
That one, but I don't remember any of the Kong stuff. I'm gonna have to go back and find some of this and watch it.
Yeah.
The character also appears in the final episode of the television series Monarch: Legacy of Monsters, which is on.
No spoiler alert. Thanks, buddy. Psh.
Oh shit!
Big spoiler.
Sorry. But hey, regardless,
it's okay. I figured he was.
Oh my god, that show is so good. I think it's on Apple TV, right?
Apple TV. Yeah, I got to the part with the monster in the ice. That's right.
Okay.
I haven't finished it. yet.
Oh, it is.
But I will.
So good.
I will.
It's so good, and I recommend it to everybody. Like, it's worth it to get that. I think that with Ted Lasso. But now back to Brian with sports.
Oh, thanks, Steve. So, our Pittsburgh Steelers, they suck, and they probably should have fired Tomlin a while ago. And
they all suck now.
They all suck now. And next year, 2025, we're getting another Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
Now over Stan with the weather. It's snowing. Thanks, Stan. Anyway. All right. King Kong is, without a doubt, one of the best known monsters and characters in pop culture. And he's definitely the most inspirational. Like, so many movies and ideas have come from that King Kong movie. And in 1933, the film was a success, but it wasn't as big of a success as it could have been if it was released a little bit later. Ray Bradbury, famous author, Rad Raspberry.
It's coming back to bite you now, making fun of me.
Shut up. That's why I jinxed myself. So Ray Bradbury, the famous author, if you don't know what he wrote, look it up, remarked that when King Kong was released, a mob of boys went quietly mad across the world, then fled into the light to become adventurers, explorers, zookeepers, and filmmakers. When King Kong was re-released in 1952, it was one of the biggest media events ever. Time magazine called it the movie of the year. It was advertised on TV, which was never done before. TV was kind of a new thing, 50s. Movies were never advertised on TV because, TV didn't exist. So this is where King Kong became a true pop culture phenomenon. And that's why Godzilla rode that wave just 2 years later. And the movies like The Beast of 20,000 Fathoms, like, it all came from the idea of King Kong. It all rode that wave. King Kong would, of course, inspire Godzilla, Mad Magazine parodies, Simpsons episode. It would inspire Titano, the Super Ape, and Superman. Shout out to our boys at the Krypton Report, Tyler and James. Great DC Comics podcast there. Would inspire Mighty Joe Young, which we'll discuss in a second. It was there were various more parodies, and probably the most biggest inspiration that King Kong gave was the character Donkey Kong from Nintendo. And today is Mario Day, where we're recording this episode on March 10th. So happy Mario Day and happy Donkey Kong. Now, Steve, it's time for a segment I'd like to call Losing Your Virginity to a Giant Ape. This is a part of the podcast. This is a part of the podcast where we tell you how we first met King Kong. So, Steve, how and when did you lose your virginity to a giant King Kong's banana?
I don't remember this, but the movie, Peter Jackson's was probably the first introduction to King Kong I saw.
Nice.
Yeah, it was so cinematic and it was really good. It even did creep me out a little bit. I don't know if you remember the scene where they're like at the bottom in like a swampy area and like those worms come out and like grab their heads and shit. Oh, sorry for my language.
Oh, geez. No, well, geez. No, I don't.
Am I thinking of another movie? It has the one actor which loses is out of my thought. The one that does the motion capture really, really well.
Oh, yeah, our boy.
Yeah, I can't think of his name.
Gollum, King Kong.
Yep.
Caesar, Planet of the Apes.
Yep.
Alfred and the Batman, and I'm wearing the Batman shirt today. What the heck's his name?
I know he does a lot of the real good motion capture.
Oh my gosh, what is his name? Played Dr. Claw and Black Panther.
Oh yeah.
What the heck's his name?
This is killing me.
Oh my gosh. Selznick, that's his name.
Oh yeah.
Rad Raspberry. What is his name?
I'm getting the Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis, my man.
Yeah, well, to get back where I was saying, he like actually he's in the movie and the worm literally grabs around his head and he's just standing there like trying to cut out of it, but that scene it was freaky.
I don't remember that scene,
Really?
but I'm gonna watch.
I'm hoping I'm
again
talking about the right movie. Because I believe Jack Black was in it. Yeah,
Jack Black was in definitely.
I'm pretty sure that's in that movie.
Huh.
Let me see. Was Andy Serkis even in that movie?
Yeah, he did the mocap for Kong.
Oh, okay. Let me.
Yeah, like that's where, like, other than Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, that was one of the only
mocap king, man. Yeah, he did all the mocap for Kong.
Yeah, and I believe he was a sailor in that too.
Probably.
But yeah, that's probably when I first discovered Kong.
When you lost your thing.
Lost my virginity to a big banana.
A big banana. and you woke up in the next morning and you rolled over and you realized that she was just a damn dirty ape. So the first time that I was introduced to King Kong, I didn't see the original movie until I was an adult, like probably in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because I don't remember seeing the original as a kid, but it's one of my core memories. My first interaction with King Kong is one of my core memories. So Carnegie Science Center, the greatest field trip day of all as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember Carnegie had the Omnimax, Rango's Omnimax theater?
Yeah.
So like it's gone now. The Omnimax is taken out and they put like a 70-foot screen in there. It's supposed to be the biggest screen in Pittsburgh. But I don't know. Like they took out the Omnimax probably because you could only show things in like standard definition.
Yeah.
Like kind of how it was. So it didn't look as good.
Mm-hmm.
But but it was fourth grade, and Mrs. Hellman, who I wasn't a big fan of her, but I go into that theater for the first time, and like I'm scared of heights, so I could never climb the Empire State Building, and all these stairs were at such an angle because and they were so tall. They were at an angle where if you were to lean back even a millimeter, you probably would fall down the stairs. Like you had to hold on that railing because you go up so high. And an OmniMax theater, to anybody that's never been to one, it's a big giant dome. The whole screen's a dome, and it surrounds. You're like in a globe, and it surrounds everything. It's a big circle around you. And that day they showed movie magic and sci-fi, and they went over like how George Lucas made Star Wars and the models for it, and this made me like obsessed with old school movies. And then they talked about 1976 King Kong and the animatronics and that, and the way the documentary ended. So the thing about OmniMax is you feel like you're in the movie. So like when when they did a movie about sharks, you felt like the sharks were swimming by your head. Whatever. But they end this movie with King Kong at the top of the Empire State Building, and I'm like 10 years old. And then they cut to King Kong falling off the Empire State Building. And because it's all around you and all you see, you felt like you were falling off the Empire State Building because it goes so fast. And the way the experience is, science, I felt like I was falling off, and I was so scared. Like I yelled out, and then like at the last second, a net captures the robotic Kong, the animatronic Kong, and you stopped. Holy crap! Scared out of my mind. I will never forget that, and I would love to, like, if any OmniMax theater is showing that movie after all these years, I want to go back. And that was my first experience with Kong, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, movie magic is awesome. Animatronics are awesome." And Jurassic Park had just came out during that time, and like it made me such a lover of old school movies, and probably a big part of why I'm not a big CGI fan is because just that movie magic, that Jim Henson studio stuff. Yeah, I loved it. And and then also big memory of Kong is when I was in college in Virginia Beach, King Kong Peter Jackson's in 2005 was heavily advertised, and I would go to Best Buy every chance I could, and I would play the Xbox 360 because it was just coming out and I couldn't afford it, and play the King Kong game.
Huh.
So, core memories.
Yeah, that OmniMax, man, that would make me vomit. Oh, I got so motion sickness from those things.
It was nuts. It was
Yeah.
like there's no other movie experience like it, and I wish that we didn't get away from it because it was nuts.
Oh, and speaking of Andy Serkis, he was King Kong and the sailor Lumpy.
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 Lumpy replace Charlie?
Yeah, I don't know if they replaced
Was he a
him.
cook?
No, I think he was just a sailor. I don't think he had like a big role.
Interesting. Okay. Well, Serkis is amazing. Andy Serkis, we forgot your name, but you are amazing to us.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting. Okay.
No, I don't think. I think they had an Asian actor, Lobo Chain, played Choi. That was probably the
so
Charlie
we did
character.
still have that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Steve, now even though I kind of feel like our Pay the Fool is almost the main event because we learned so much, but now it's time for the main event. So this is the part of the podcast where we talk about the film, book, TV show, novel, comic book, or character from a moment in horror history. So today we're focusing on, of course, on King Kong and his history, but more importantly, how he affected horror and sci-fi movie history and the 1950s. So we're going to talk about the OG movie from 1933. We're going to talk about the Son of Kong that was fast tracked right after King Kong in also 1993. And then I want to talk a little bit about Mighty Joe Young, because Mighty Joe Young, I would say, is very responsible for the King Kong that you have today in terms of personality and just kind of how he's handled. So let's get to it. So let's start with the OG 1933 film. Now, what I'm about to say is pretty darn crazy because we made a lot of jokes about a giant gorilla and women and bestiality, and that's the type of humor we have here. Just in a very inappropriate humor. So what I'm about to say is very gross. So just a heads up. But hey, it's where the ideas came from.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons King Kong happened was not only because Marion Cooper was a jungle lover and such, and he loved the letter K, but a company called Congo Pictures released a hoax documentary in 1930 called Ingagi, and they advertised the film as an authentic documentary showing the sacrifice of a living woman to mammoth gorillas. So people were thinking this is like a real documentary. Like we're going to see women get sacrificed to gorillas. So what Ingagi really is, unfortunately, is a racial exploitation film, and it depicts black women. It implies, it implies that black women are having sex with gorillas, and it shows baby offspring that looks more ape than human. So, in this movie, these black women get a whole bunch of bananas and ape-like kids, and that's where King Kong Bundy came from. And this movie, for some reason, in the 1930s, was an immediate hit, and it was one of the highest grossing films of the 1930s. It grossed in over $4 million in 1930. It was a huge deal. So Randy Orton greenlighted Kong. So RKO Productions greenlighted Kong because of the formula that gorillas plus sexy women in peril equals enormous profits. So how about them bananas? In my opinion, Kong was still ahead of its time. Kong is well known for its groundbreaking use of special effects such as stop motion animation, matte painting, rear projection, miniatures. All this was considered like crazy special effects in 1930s. The numerous prehistoric creatures that inhabit Skull Island were brought to life through stop motion by Willis O'Brien, the guy that had many arguments with Cooper of how the direction of things should go, and his assistant animator, Buzz Gibson. The stop motion animation scenes were, they're painstaking. They take a very long time to achieve and complete after the special effects crew realized they cannot stop their work because it would make the movements of the creatures seem inconsistent and the lighting would be wrong. They use this tool, and I had to look up a YouTube video of what this tool was and what it looked like. But they use this device called a surface gauge, and basically it's almost like a protractor on a stick, but it's this metal pole going up and down, and then there's another metal pole through it that kind of goes sideways, almost like a protractor. And so they would kind of make the model, and then they would have this arrow facing down on it of where it stopped. And then there would be a distance between it of where they moved it the previous day. So that it would mark kind of where things were when they left it. So when they made the model back, they could, make it, and they knew it was like a reference point tool. You have to look it up. It's hard for me to explain. But the most difficult task, though, for special effects crews in this movie was to make live action footage interact with separately filmed stop motion. So to make that work, the interaction between humans and the creatures of the island need to look believable. So the most simple effects of that where they would expose part of the film frame and run the same piece of film through the camera again by exposing the other part of the frame with a different image. So basically, what that means is they would film the part of slow motion or stop motion, my apologies, of the gorilla, and then they would take the film part of the humans and put it on that picture. So like double posing, and that's how they kind of made it work. And that's probably why you had a lot of depth issues in the film. So now, over the years, some media reports have alleged that in certain scenes, Kong is actually played by an actor in a gorilla suit. No, in Godzilla versus Kong, King Kong is in a suit the whole time. Like he is in that suit. Some dude's in that suit, but in this movie, they were all achieved by animated models. I don't think there was anybody in the suit in this movie. It just didn't happen. But the close-ups of Kong's face and upper body, these shots were accomplished by like a full-size mechanical model of Kong's head. So that's why like the eyes move mechanically, the mouth moves mechanically. And the action is very smooth. It's not stop motion jittery. The footage is sharp and clear because it's animatronic. I am a huge advocate for animatronics when it comes to any type of animal or alien type thing. Like animatronics make it look real because it's physically there. Like I wish they still did animatronics. I really do.
I agree, but a man in a suit sometimes looks really good. Like I know you mentioned aliens and stuff, but in the Alien movie, it's actually a guy in an alien suit walking around and stuff. And I didn't even know.
Really?
Yeah, there's a show. I don't know if it's on Disney Plus, but it like
the movies that made us or something?
Maybe because I watched an episode on Nightmare Before Christmas, and it showed how they did all that stuff. So, but I do like a guy in a suit sometimes.
Well, I did a whole episode of Nightmare Before Christmas last season. Didn't you listen to it, Steve?
I didn't get that far yet.
What jerk. But yes, I'm with you. Like my main argument is I feel that while CGI is cool for some things, like it's gotten overly ridiculous and it takes away some of that movie magic, like with people in suits, animatronics, stop motion. I think is only really good for animated movies.
Yeah,
like when it's all animated. But I just like Jurassic Park is that perfect blend.
Yep.
Of animatronics and CGI.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about Jurassic Park in a few years, but Jurassic Park changed movies forever.
Oh, yeah.
Forever. Like you would not have movies the way they are without Jurassic Park. But anywho, so Kong has a roar just like Godzilla. And it was created by mixing the recorded vocals of captive lions and tigers and playing them backwards, which is very interesting because those are not even in the same evolution family. But Spivak himself provided Kong's love grunts, like oof, oof, ah, oof, oh, ah, by grunting into a megaphone and playing it at slow speed. So that must have been very, very interesting to stand there with a microphone and be doing love grunts. and then his wife's over there. You're faking it. And then he's like, not as much as you do. For the huge ape's footsteps, Spivak stomped across a gravel-filled box with plungers wrapped in foam attached to his feet. Interesting. The sounds of his chest beat, which is probably the most iconic sound that King Kong does, beating on his chest, were recorded by Spivak hitting his assistant in the head with the steel chair. No, hitting his assistant who had a microphone held to their back in the chest or on the chest with a drumstick. So the assistant had a microphone held to their back, and they tapped on the. I don't know if you want to hit your assistants with chairs and drumsticks, whatever. Bring it on. I
That
wouldn't want to
hurt.
be that assistant. It
No,
would hurt
not at
regardless.
all.
Yeah, it would hurt regardless. Spivak created the hisses and croaks of the dinosaurs with the air compressor for the former and his own vocal cords for the latter. The vocalizations of the Tyrannosaurus were additionally mixed in with puma screams, while bird squawks were used for the pterodon. So very interesting stuff. Spivak was, I guess, a voice master, and he provided numerous screams for the sailors, and but the actress Fay Ray provided all her screams in a single recording session. Now, for those of you that care about scores and pay attention to scores in movies, I'm deaf, so I really don't, because I can't hear it. But my boy Tyler does. The score wasn't like anything that ever came before in movies, and it marked a significant change in the history of film music. King Kong's score was the first feature length film with a musical score that was written for an American talkie film. So basically, what that means here is, you know, movies up until the early 30s, they were all silent movies. And if they had any sound was added later through like an audio track. So this was the first movie ever that had a score for where they were recording, voice all in one movie. So it was a very first Hollywood film to have a thematic score rather than just background music. So it was also the first to mark the use of a 46-piece orchestra and the first to be recorded in 3 separate tracks with sound effects, dialogue, and music. And he used a number of new scoring techniques, such as drawing upon opera conventions. I don't even know what that word means, so I'm skipping that in my notes. But basically, it was a big deal. It was a big deal in terms of movie music. So, what happens in this dang movie? Well, I'm going to tell you. So, the movie starts off with like 4 minutes of an overture, which is kind of weird. Like, I know it's a re-editing of the movie, but to sit there and wait for the movie to start for like 4 to 5 minutes and it just says overture, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't think they should have added that. Like, it doesn't add anything to the movie at all. And so this movie was a Marion Cooper and Ernest B. Schusak production. The movie starts with an Arabian proverb saying, and the prophet said, and lo, the beast looked upon the face of beauty, and it stayed its hand from killing. And from that day, it was one dead. And so the movie kind of starts with, let me get in here. I'm so sorry. So it starts with, in a New York harbor, we meet the character Carl Denham. And Carl is a filmmaker, and he is known for wildlife films in remote and exotic locations. And he gets a ship called the Venture. He hires a captain named Engelhorn, and Engelhorn is an important character in these movies. Carl and Engelhorn, they're kind of like staples of the King Kong. And he hires this guy for the new film, but he is unable to secure an actress for a female role that he doesn't want to totally disclose. So no actress will work with him, and he really hasn't worked with actresses before. This movie is pretty darn sexist, I will tell you. So he leaves and he searches the streets of New York City, and he's like outside like a homeless shelter, and he finds this girl named Anne Darrow, who is she's beautiful, and um and he sees Anne like trying to get food and stuff, and she doesn't have money for it. And he buys her food, and then he takes her to like a diner, and he tells her that basically, you come with me and on this ship, and I'll give you a job, and you'll have the adventure of a lifetime. So she agrees, and um, um, and yeah, so I think there's even a scene that Anne is playing with like a little monkey on the street, or I'm sorry, she played with a monkey on the boat, and someone says "Beauty meets the Beast," and it's like a little foreshadowing there. But I'm sorry, I jumped ahead there. So the crew boards the Venture, and they set off. And a big reason why Denham has to leave so quickly is because he has a whole bunch of explosives and gas bombs on the boat, and the police are basically looking for him. So he has to like leave really quick, or the cops will get him. So yeah, so the boat takes off, and we meet the ship's first mate. His name is Jack Driscoll, and he has a lot of a lot of interaction with Anne, and they're kind of like falling in love basically. And then we find out that Denham has a secret reason for going this location. He reveals that they're actually looking for this uncharted territory that is called Skull Island. And Carl met a guy in Singapore that rescued a tribe off the coast of this island. And they finds this island, and the natives there build a wall to keep something in. And whatever's in there is a folklore legend. And this island is completely and utterly covered with fog. So Denham alludes to the mysterious entity named Kong that is rumored to live on this island. The crew arrives on the island, and they hear drums just beating like ba-bum, ba-bum, ba-bum. And as they get closer, they hear the natives chanting Kong, Kong, and all these other words. And the natives seem to be dancing for a ceremony wearing monkey suits. And they have taken a young black girl and put flowers over her, and it seems like they're going to sacrifice her to Kong. And Carl tries to film this. So Carl is also his own cameraman, because his cameramen are too afraid to get close to these monsters. So Carl, like, he brags that he has, guts, and like, he has balls. And so and he films this all himself. So yeah. So the natives see Carl filming and sees everybody else, and they stop their ceremony, and the ceremony's ruined because they're there and they had to stop it. So they see Anne, and they're like, "Oh, golden woman, ooh!" And they want Anne to be the bride of Khan, and they want to trade like 6 tribal women. So we have sexual trafficking here, which is always good to have in a movie. And they want to basically like buy Anne and give them like 6 women, and Carl refuses, and they return to the ship, and they take Anne with them. But that night, the natives kidnap Anne and take her to the gate to the altar where for King Kong, and she's offered to King Kong, and it's pretty crazy. So they put her on the altar, and like this movie is a very good movie, but it is quite sexist, and it is quite racist. It just is. I don't think it's as racist as some later depictions, but it's still fairly racist. And and but yeah, so Carl and Jack, they get all the men on the ship, they grab the rifles, and they're gonna go save Anne. And the natives open up the gates to the wall, and there's like stairs going up to this altar, and they strap Anne in. And at 47 minutes into the movie, with 57 minutes left, we finally see King Kong for the first time. And as Kong goes, up to Anne, he terrifies Anne, terrifies everybody. And as they're trying to get to Anne, as Jack and like Denham are trying to get there, they encounter dinosaurs like a Stegosaurus, which they managed to kill. And they run into a Brontosaurus, and eventually they meet Kong. And Kong has taken Anne with him in his hand because he loves women. and um and as Jack continues to like kind of follow them, Jack continues to follow Anne and Kong, and Denham returns to the village to get more men and get bombs, and they face various different other dinosaurs. Like it's a very stop motion cool thing. They want to show the strength of Kong, so they have him facing all these monsters. Eventually Kong gets distracted by facing a pterodon that tries to fly away with Anne. Jack saves Anne, and they get back to the boat. Kong notices, chases them, and they throw all the gas bombs at Kong, and it renders him unconscious, and they take him back to New York. So the movie does not care about the logistics of how they're going to move Kong. like how do they put him on the boat? How do they travel him? How do they get him through customs? Like I guess 1933 there really wasn't customs there, but like the movie doesn't go over the logistics of it. In King Kong versus Godzilla, I appreciated that they showed that they build this giant raft and then they drag Kong onto the raft. And then they tow Kong on this giant raft across the ocean with the boat. So that makes sense. They show the logistics of it. But in this King Kong, they really don't. But whatever. What are you going to do? So before I tell you a little bit more and how this movie ends, I got to tell you some things. So around the 1930s to the late 60s, censors were very heavy in movies and TV and eventually in comics. Censors were going crazy in the world of media, and these uptight douchebags created the production code for film. This movie was made pre to that code, but because of releases after the censorship, some scenes were taken out, and some of them for good reason. Now, if you watch King Kong today, these scenes are back in the movie. So, yeah. So some of these scenes would be cut out. So the Brontosaurus mauling crewman in the water and chasing up a tree and killing him, that was cut out. They didn't want to show like people dying and excessive violence. Kong in the movie, he undresses Anne a little bit. He starts pulling a little piece of her clothing away, having a little foreplay with her. And what's really disturbing is as he pulls things away, he starts sniffing his fingers. Yeah, and yeah,
That's creepy.
Creepy, bit disturbing.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's basically like Quagmire of the Kongs.
Yeah.
And now Kong eventually like bites natives, and like there's scenes of the natives being on the ground while Kong's like trying to get after Anne and Denham as they escape, and he like steps on people's heads, and he steps on it again and crushes them. So pretty cool. And then there's a scene near the end where when Kong is climbing the Empire State Building, he just grabs this random chick, and like he sees it's not Anne, and then he just like throws her in the ground, and like you can see her falling to the ground, and like it's crazy. So and then there was supposed to be like an additional scene portraying giant insects, spiders, reptile like predator, and there was like a tentacle creature that crew members were like, there's also a part where like crew members were like shaking off a log and they fell to the canyon below and they actually like bounce off the ground. And in the copy I have of King Kong, you see him bounce off the ground. Like these dudes are dead. But there was some scene that was very gruesome and it's considered lost forever. And I think it's part of some of the deaths of people, but I don't know. And of course, there's also a controversy of racism in the film, as there is sexism. The controversial thing of the racism is basically groups were saying that King Kong is often compared to the story of Beauty and the Beast, and many have argued that King Kong is supposed to be a cautionary tale about interracial romance, and basically, that black people are apes, and King Kong is supposed to represent a black man, and that a black man shouldn't be with a white woman, which is absolutely freaking ridiculous. And I'm not putting it totally past them though, because this was the 1930s. This is before, this was segregation times. This is the time of blackface and just really, really racist stuff in movies. So I'm not putting it past it, but I think you can enjoy this movie and still watch it and not really think of racism. I think so. But back to the ending, which is one of the most iconic endings in all of cinema. If people remember anything about this movie, they remember the ending. So they bring Kong back, and Kong is now advertised as Carl's eighth wonder of the world, and he's going to show off to the whole world King Kong. And all these rich people show up. One guy makes a comment like, "I paid $20 for these tickets," and they draw back this curtain, and we see Kong with change, and everybody's taking pictures. Everybody's freaking out, like they never seen anything like this. So Kong, seeing the flash photography as an attack, he breaks loose from his change, and he takes and Anne is taken from him. She's saved at this time, and she's whisked away to a hotel room in the Empire State Building on a high floor. And I didn't even know there was hotel rooms in the Empire State Building, but I thought it was just a bunch of businesses. But whatever. Starts scaling the Empire State Building because he's looking for Anne. And he takes one woman, throws her out the window because she's not Anne. And as he's scaling the building, he finds Anne and grabs her out of the window. Very iconic scene. And he's like wrecking everything. The U.S. Air Force send biplanes after him, start shooting at him. Kong destroys one, but eventually they shoot him too much, and he falls to the ground from the Empire State Building, and he dies. And he dies with like showing eye contact to Anne. And as he is laying there dead, Jack gets Anne, takes an elevator, and Denham arrives and pushes through the crowd and sees Kong dead on the ground. Policeman, and one of the most iconic lines in cinema, the policeman says, I guess it's the planes that got him. And Denham says, no, it wasn't the airplanes. It was beauty that killed the beast. And that's how King Kong died. So an interview that was published posthumously, Marion Cooper actually explained the deeper meaning of this film. The inspiration for the climatic scene came when, as he was leaving his office in Manhattan, he heard the sound of an airplane motor. He reflexively looked up as the sun glinted off the wings of a plane flying extremely close to the tallest building in the city. He realized if he placed King Kong on top of the tallest building in the world and had him shot down by modern technology or modern weapons, the armed airplane, he would have a story of primitive doomed by modern civilization. So basically, what he said was his original message for this movie was to be like apes and people not not people not tuned to technology would be basically be destroyed by modern weapons and technology. So I don't know if I buy that, like, because even though he said in an interview, um I don't know if I buy that as the theme for this movie. I really don't, because Godzilla was very much that, like very much about like the threat of nuclear war and
Hmm.
stuff like that. This movie like had really nothing to do with technology. Like
No.
this movie was just kind of like, I mean, I guess it was a modern telling Beauty and the Beast, but like I think of the message of this movie is anything. It's like some things are best left alone.
Hmm.
Like just leave the animal where you found it.
Yep.
Like you find something crazy, just leave it there. If anything.
Yeah. To get back to when you said about the scenes that were cut out, I wonder if the
Yeah.
one where it said that Kong moved the log and they fell down into the cavern, if that's not the scene that got cut, which was in Peter Jackson's, which I described to you as the worms coming and eating
Oh.
some of the crew members. I
Oh.
wonder if that was that scene that got cut. They later put in Peter Jackson's one.
Huh. I didn't. Yeah, I'll look for that when I rewatch.
Because I believe it is in like a deep, like they fell down in this hole, but I'm not sure if they fell down in the hole in this one or they walked into this area in between these two mountain ranges or whatever you want to call them. But that makes me wonder if that's the scene they cut out of the old one that they end up putting in the Peter Jackson's.
Huh. Okay, I'm gonna look for it. I'm definitely gonna look for it. Um, it's been a while since I watched Peter Jackson's one.
Yeah.
And I've never seen I've seen the 76 King Kong. Um, and I haven't seen the sequel to it with Lady Kong,
Mm.
and I haven't seen um um yeah, I haven't seen King Kong Escapes with Robo Kong.
I haven't
And
seen anything before Peter Jackson's King Kong other than I've seen what we're talking about now. I've seen these
well,
ones.
that's what this
Now,
podcast is about, buddy.
yeah.
It's about seeing this stuff. Um, so Steve, we know that Rotten Tomatoes is like the Bible of movie rating, and they can never get anything wrong ever.
Mhm.
Case in point, King Kong is sitting at 97% guaranteed fresh. It is considered one of the greatest movies of all time, and rightfully so. Like it's listed as number 43 on AFI's 100 best films. It has the number 13 greatest score of all time. This movie has a great legacy. In 1981, Nintendo ripped off King Kong and created, Donkey Kong, and the film stop motion effects by Willis H. O'Brien revolutionized special effects. It left a lasting impact on the film industry worldwide. Inspired other movies such as and other genre movies with apes, such as Mighty Joe Young. It inspired The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which would inspire Godzilla. It inspired Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is a very underrated monster movie. Um, it inspired Mothra and inspired Jurassic Park. The film was, of course, one of the biggest inspirations for Godzilla, which the creator, one of the creators of Godzilla said, I felt like doing something big, and that was my motivation. I thought of different ideas. I like monster movies, and I was totally influenced by King Kong. And it has also been suggested that King Kong inspired the modern day legend of the Loch Ness Monster. Because when that movie came out, that is when the first reported sighting of Loch Ness Monster came about around that time in 1930s. Which we are doing an episode in a couple months on the history of Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster. It's something that I'm really excited for those because that research is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
now I have a question for you.
And I have an answer for you.
Do you think, I'm not up to date on this stuff, that Rampage was either made because of the Godzilla vs. King Kong type thing, or was it its own thing? Because it's basically...
Dude, I didn't even mention Rampage, and I should have.
Yeah.
I should mention Rampage. Rampage is a 1,000,000% ripoff of King Kong vs. Godzilla.
Okay, yeah, that's what
Rampage was actually created. Rampage first came out in the original Nintendo, and it had a bunch of kaijus in it. One looks like Godzilla, but the staple of it is the albino gorilla. Absolutely. And Primal Rage, I think, was an arcade fighting game in the 90s when we were kids. I think it was called Primal Rage. It had a bunch of kaiju fightings in it too.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they end up putting in a big werewolf in there too.
I think so. Yes.
Rampage game.
Yes, but now you make me want to watch the Rampage movie. But Rampage is 1,000,000% a ripoff of King Kong Godzilla. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So, Steve, a few months after King Kong came out, they did a sequel like immediately. Tell me about that sequel, Steve. I gotta know.
Well, the sequel is called Son of Kong. It had come out, I believe, the same year, a couple months later, and was produced by RKO Pictures. It was directed by Ernest Shoyasak. Sorry for my pronunciation. And featuring special effects by Willis O'Brien and Buzz Gibson. The film stars Robert Armstrong, Helen Mack, and Frank Riker. The film is the sequel to the King Kong, being released just actually 9 months after this as the second entry in the Kong franchise. Basically, this movie is a month after the original movie of the destruction of New York City by Kong. And Carl Denham, has all these lawsuits on him, and he's almost bankrupt. So he leaves the city aboard a venture with the Captain Inglehorn, who stays with, but their efforts are to make money shipping cargo around Asia, but aren't successful. After arriving in the port of the city of Dakang, Denham and Inglehorn attend a show about performing monkeys, which ends with the song Runway Blues, sung by a young woman, which becomes the female actor Hilda Peterson, who Denham immediately is attracted to. So that night, Mr. Peterson, Hilda's father, who runs the monkey show, stays up drinking and talking to a Norwegian skipper, Hillstrom, who had lost his ship under questionable circumstances. The two men argued and fought, which kills Peterson, and his tent burns down. Hilda, being saddened by what just happened, releases all the monkeys from the cages. And then soon after, Denham and Inglehorn meet Hellstrom, who had sold Denham the map to Kong's Island. Hellstrom convinces them that there's a treasure on this island, and they all agree they'll go and find it. Denham leaves Hilda at home while she's recapturing her monkeys and tries to cheer her up and refuses to take her. But shortly after they leave port, Hilda is found stowed away on board. Hillstrom talks to Hilda into silence and then out of nowhere incites a mutiny on board Venture. But the sailors want more captains and forcing him along with Denham, Inglehorn, Hilda, and Charlie, the cook, away in the lifeboat. So they take the ship and make them all go away in the lifeboat, basically. So the group lands on Skull Island and discovers that the natives now blame Denham for Khan's destruction of their village, forces them to retreat into the interior of this island, where they get split up into two groups. Denham and Hilda then encounter giant albino gorilla, smaller than Khan, but still well over twice the height of a man. When they come upon him, this giant ape is stuck in quicksand. So Denham helps him out and bandages the ape's finger, establishing a relationship, a trust with the ape. Denham then tells his, the one he likes, Hilda, that he believes the ape is actually Kong's son and names him Little Kong. Later, Inglehorn, Charlie, and Hellstrom are attacked by some kind of dinosaur called, sorry for my mispronunciation, a Styracosaurus, which chases them into a cave. While they're Denham and Hilda are then attacked by a giant cave bear, but Little Kong fights it and scares it away. Hellstrom and actually made up his treasure story to get a free ride away from the king, but with the ape's help, Denham and Hilda find the real treasure, a huge jewel on the head of a seemingly abandoned idol, a giant stone idol, which they take. Little Kong, Denham, and Hilda are attacked by another dinosaur, a Nothosaurus, but again, Little Kong defends him, fights it, and he ends up killing it. After this, a storm comes in and Hellstrom tries to escape in the lifeboat, but is killed by a sea dinosaur, Elasmosaurus. Then Inglehorn, Hilda, and Charlie quickly retrieve and board that lifeboat, but a violent earthquake and hurricane strikes the island and begins to sink in the ocean. The water soon surrounds Denham and Little Kong atop of a tall mound as the ape's foot gets stuck in the cracking of the mountain. He then sacrifices himself, Little Kong, to save Denham by holding him above the water as it rises. The group then later get to Denham just in time as Little Kong's hand, which is still bandaged from Denham, sinks below. On the deck of a rescue ship, Denham Hilda contemplate this tragic fate of Kong's son and their future together. But Denham shows Hilda this jewel that he took, assuring that they'll be financially safe for all of them. It was Denham's intention to split the fortune 4 ways, with Denham, Hilda, Inglehorn, and Charlie. But Hilda says 3 ways is just fine, indicating that she's throwing her fortunes in with Denham for the long haul.
She wants some of that banana.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
So, but that's basically what happens in Son of Kong.
You know, did you like this movie?
It was okay. It puts him more as a hero than the horror aspect again, with the whole saving them and building that trust with what was his name?
Denham.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was okay. Don't get me wrong, but
Sure.
the first one was always the better one, and I think they rushed it too quick.
Oh, it was very rushed. It was very rushed, like big time. So did you say like how long the movie was?
No, I didn't actually get into that.
Okay, you just said the plot.
Yeah, I just went through the plot.
Okay, my apologies. I had a little back. But
It was about 60 minutes long, and it released in December 22nd of 1933. The budget was $269,000. They made in the box office $616,000, and it was in English.
yes, that's important.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
and made by RKO, Randy.
yeah. I mentioned that above, I think. Yeah.
Like so I think this movie is important for the character of Carl, like
Yes.
Carl Denham, because
Yes.
he at the end of the first movie, he was very guilty. Like he was very he was he's heartbroken, and he felt very guilty of taking Kong from his home because
Yeah.
Kong died. It caused all this destruction. So with like people,
Suits.
all the lawsuits,
Yeah.
like it was very good character development too, because in the first movie, like he didn't want like any women around, like they were a distraction. Like Anne was like a nuisance, but
Yeah.
like he cared about Anne towards the end of that movie. And when he meets Hilda in this, and like the stuff about her dad, and
Yeah.
and um we see that growth in him, that he's like ready to kind of like open up his heart, that Kong and the son of Kong, took this cold man that only cared about money and fame to be more open and want to kind of like have a wife, and like, so character development wise, very good. I liked that they brought those story elements of having a Hellstrom in this. Like,
Yeah.
this is the guy that had the map to Kong, and like bringing that in. That's just good writing. Like bringing things mentioned in past movies.
And answering the questions and stuff.
Yeah. So like that's why I like, this is just like Raids Again to original Gojira. Like it's just good partnership. You can watch both the movies in under 3 hours.
Yeah.
It and this movie was just like an hour long. So it really adds to that story. But we had King Kong die. Now we have Son of Kong die.
Yeah.
Like there's not much more you could have done with it.
Yeah, there's no
But
continuity. Yeah,
right.
continuity. Yeah, from it.
Yeah.
Continuity.
Continuity?
Maybe.
Yeah, that's where we were.
They couldn't do more because they kept killing the monkey at the end.
It's like an MCU movie. Just kill the villain. They're done with it. We're done.
But
but it's I still think it's fairly decent. I think it's a good partnership. But this movie definitely inspired and changed the aspect of King Kong even more, because like the Son of Kong definitely establishes him as a hero.
Yes.
And it wasn't just like protecting the female in his mind. Like it was just like protecting humans, protecting humanity. So this movie establishes the little Kong, like the Kong race, as a protector of humanity. Like Godzilla doesn't give a crap. Like he just kind of does it. And the legendary films, like they're trying to establish that Kong wants to kind of like Kong will protect stuff, or I'm sorry, that Godzilla will protect stuff. But Kong is without a doubt like humanity's champion, like humanity's protector. So it makes Kong an even more of a hero, establishing here with holding Denham up with one hand, just trying to save him from drowning. And they take these aspects and they bring it into to Mighty Joe Young. So and I do think that like the Son of Kong aspect will be brought up in Godzilla X Kong.
Yeah, in the new one.
Absolutely, because we have this little tiny gorilla who's also albino, and the proportions in this movie were still off of how big little Kong would be, or Son of Kong would be.
Yeah.
what have you. So yeah, so the only returning characters in this movie, I think Charlie was back, the cook, and then the captain, and
Let
yeah,
me see here. Charlie was back. Yeah, the cook.
yeah,
Denham and the captain of the Venture, I believe, right?
yeah,
Inglehorn.
yeah, Englehorn, yes.
Yeah. Other than that, I think those were the only returns.
Okay. So I'm going to talk these next two movies very quick. So the reason I bring up these next movies, Mighty Joe Young, and the remake Mighty Joe Young in '98, is in Mighty Joe Young. Mighty Joe Young came out in 1949, and the reason why it's it's so it's I'm mentioning it here is because it was created by RKO Productions, and it was made by the same exact creative team of Marion Cooper, the producer, and directed by Ernest Schoedsack, and written by Ruth Rose. It was written, and even the animation I think was done by O'Brien too. Um, but the exact same team that did King Kong did this movie, and so we hadn't seen a King Kong movie, and this movie came out in '49. So it's been 16 years, and we haven't had a continuation of the Son of Kong story. We haven't had anything. So this movie, and as I'll tell the storyline, this movie could almost be a third King Kong movie. If you squeak the story a little bit. So
Yeah, even the poster, if you look at the wiki page,
yep.
has everything Kong would have. It's Kong protecting a woman or having a woman
Uh-huh.
and fighting animals or other monsters or kaijus.
And
Yeah, I would agree with you.
exactly. And I couldn't find anything in research of why they didn't call this like King Kong 3, or um like or mention Kong in this, because you could have mentioned Kong in this. And in the remake of Mighty Joe Young in the '90s, they mentioned that legend. I think it's called Zamuta or something. I don't know. I'm probably butchering that, but they mention a legend of a protector of the mountain. Um, but it wasn't really on the island. It was all in Africa. Um, so anywho, this movie is a black and white fantasy film. It was made in 1949. The same people that did King Kong did this movie. Um, and I think this movie is quite good. I enjoyed it. It's a good, heartwarming family film. So this came out in July 1949, made by the exact same people that made King Kong. This movie was somewhat of a flop. And I think it probably was. I think this movie probably flopped because it was made by the same people that made King Kong, and people were probably expecting more of a King Kong type feature. It's like I don't know. It's like I don't know. It would be like when okay, this would be like your phase, like your multiverse saga in terms of the MCU. Like Son of Kong ended the
Yeah.
MCU, and then we have the same people making these movies that made wonderful MCU, and now they want to do something totally different with the established formula that they have. That's kind of like the best way to
Mhm.
describe it, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but this movie, the budget was 1.8 mil, and this movie made 1.9 mil. 1.9 I'm sorry, 1.95 mil. So it didn't make much. It made a couple $100,000. It didn't do very well. But yeah, so this is what happens in this movie. So in 1937, okay, so if we want to make it in the continuity of King Kong, this would be already 4 years later. So we're 4 years later. So if we have Carl go off on his own and kind of like into hiding, now we're in 4 years. Okay, so we go into the Tenga. I'm also don't speak African. I don't speak Japanese. I don't speak African. So in the Tenga, in some territory in Africa, there is an 8-year-old girl named Jill Young, and she's living with her father on this ranch. What her father does, I don't really remember, but she lives on this ranch, and two Africans come by carrying an orphan baby gorilla. Why they're carrying this gorilla, we never know. We never find out. They're just carrying him past her place and in a basket that they made. So I don't know. They never explain it. Jill sees this gorilla, immediately falls in love with it. She has no friends on this ranch. She's just a very lonely kid. So she trades her toys um, and some money that she has, but they're not really interested in that. But then she steals her father's flashlight. The flashlight is a big part of the Mighty Joe story and mythology. This is how she controls Joe, or basically makes Joe feel safe. When he sees the flashlight or the light, he knows that Jill's there. But she trades them this flashlight. So, in the 1998 movie, this flashlight is it's like an Easter egg, and she uses it to make Joe feel safe. So she gives him the flashlight, and then they're like, "Yeah, sure, here's a gorilla." So, the father says like the gorilla is going to get really big. We're not going to really be able to take care of this. I want my damn flashlight back. But Jill, he warms up to it. We also find out that Jill's mom passed away. The father's a little bit lonely too. It's just how it is. So then we skip 12 years later. So this would be 15 years from this would be 15 years. We're up to modern day 1949. So this would be I'm sorry, 16 years since Carl and the whole King Kong thing came to be. So if we want to make this in the same continuity, but we meet a guy named Max O'Hara in LA, and he's played by the same guy that played Carl Denham in the King Kong movies. So this is why I'm saying that like we could kind of go into this continuity that like Carl Denham character married Hilda, and he like went into hiding for like 10, 15 years. And now he's living in LA. He's got a new identity, and he's doing like a nightclub owner, but most people have forgotten about Carl Denham. Like we could just work with me, people. It could work. It could work. But anyway, Max here is a nightclub owner, and he has a sidekick named Greg, and they on a trip to Africa, and they're looking for animals for his like African jungle themed nightclub in LA and Hollywood. And the man had captured some lions, and they're about to leave when a gorilla shows up that's about 12 feet tall and weighing like 2,000 pounds. And he comes and he saves the lion from the cage. And then he goes on a rampage because he thinks these guys are poachers. So he's going on a rampage against them. Visualizing Joe as their nightclub attraction, Max tried to rope him, and he throws both men from their horses and breaks free. And then a grown Jill Young arrives, and she calms down Joe. The men meet with Jill, and Greg becomes a bit smitten with her. I'm so sorry. Thing about Greg O'Hara's character in this movie is he was a cowboy for like sideshows, and they shut down. So he was hoping that Max would hire him and take him to Africa and kind of like rope animals for him and kind of like get a job that way. So that's why he's there. He's like a cowboy. So, yeah. So they talk with Jill, and they're like, you come to Hollywood, you'll be rich, you won't be poor anymore. Joe will be a huge, attraction, and you need the money, to take care of this ranch. You're not gonna be able to take care of Joe as he gets bigger, blah blah blah. So they take him to this nightclub. The logistics of transferring Joe are never explained. And the opening night of this club, um, Joe like lifts Jill. Jill's playing on piano this song that puts Joe to sleep called "Beautiful Dreamer." She's playing and singing on piano, and like then the stage lifts up, and you see Joe like holding her, this big stop motion, claymation gorilla holding her, um, and and yeah, so pretty cool. And then they show Joe having a tug of war with the strongest men in the world, and he easily beats them. And then they have a Italian boxer try to box him, and Joe tosses him into the audience. And it's there's a lot more humor in this and stuff. But Joe's popularity grows, and by the 10th week, he's Hollywood's like biggest attraction. And then when they get to like the 17th week, Joe's getting really homesick. He's tired of doing this. He just wants to go home. And Greg and Jill are kind of like falling in love with each other. And Greg agrees that they'll get Joe out of there, and then they'll be together in Africa. So during this nightclub stuff, we find these like 3 drunk guys, and they're like really obnoxious. But it is the greatest acting in the world that I've ever seen to show drunk guys. It's the greatest acting of all time. And these drunks sneak backstage. They taunt Joe. They make him mad, and basically they try to like burn Joe's fingers with a cigarette lighter, and Joe flips out and causes this big ruckus. And now everybody kind of want to put Joe down. They want a court order comes that they're going to shoot Joe, so they put him in a cage. And then O'Hara and Jill devise a plan to get him out of California using a moving van, and then get a cargo ship. And but while they're on the way, like trying to escape police and stuff, this scene comes out of nowhere. But they witness a tall orphanage engulfed in flames, and like just out of nowhere. And this is where like the movie goes from black and white to get this red hue for the fire. And Jill and Greg like save the children. They run into the burning building, and they're saving children. And it's like it's like Spider-Man or whatever. And they're saving these kids, and then like the cowboy Greg is like using a rope on the side of the building and scaling like Spider-Man. And then Joe climbs the side of the building, and he's getting kids out, and like one kid's like trapped in the attic, and there's like one kid left. And Joe climbs to the top of the house, and like this house is like made of brick and like steady, sturdy stuff, but it's crumbling to dust. And I don't know much about construction, but I thought like brick houses, like it's very like even in fires, like it's really hard for them to crumble. Like you're gonna get somewhat of the structure left if it's brick. At least that's what I thought. But not this house. This house is falling down. So I guess when the kids like fell asleep smoking, like I don't know. but this whole thing is yeah, it's falling down. So Joe braves the fire and climbs a tree, gets Jill to safety, helps Greg, and then that one child Joe grabs, and he saves the kid. And Max assures Jill that because of Joe's heroism, that his life is going to be spared. Like no one's going to want to kill him because he saved this kid. So I guess that's the whole part of the scene. Much later, Max receives like a little video from Jill and Greg, who appear to be married, and they're on the ranch with Joe, and Joe waves goodbye. And that's your movie. There's a lot more animation in this movie that Willis O'Brien does compared to King Kong. Like Joe's very like comedic in his mannerisms and his face. There's scenes where like he's teasing people that are chasing them in the car. And we see we see a lot like warmer side to the gorilla, but we've introduced that now the female is not like a love interest, like a really disgusting, creepy love interest. Now the female is like the friend, like the caregiver of the gorilla. So, like when we get into Kong Skull Island and like the other Kong movies, and they introduce like a female trainer, kind of. This comes from My Joe Young. This is why I brought it in. Like the girl growing up with Kong in the research center, that's all from My Joe Young. This whole Kong like protecting people and making weapons and stuff out of things, that's from My Joe Young. That's where it's coming from. Ripping off their own creation as like a side story. So that's how the 1949 My Joe Young movie is. Now, in 1998, they redid the movie, and with Disney did it, and they did a great job. I loved it. Um, they bring in Bill Paxton, who I think was fresh off of Twister at this time. And they
think
bring
so,
in
yeah.
Charlize. I think so. They bring in Charlize Theron, who's absolutely lovely in this movie. Like, I mean, Charlize is a beautiful woman, but like in the '90s when she was like even younger, she just had a presence about her that was just absolutely lovely. Like almost like Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman has that presence too, where like she's just a beautiful woman, and just has a grace about her. Charlize really has that in the movie. It's just like a grace about it, like commands every room she walks into type grace, which is it's a rarity.
Mhm.
Um, but anywho, this movie they changed the whole entire story. The ape is larger in this movie, and the movie is a box office bomb. Like it had a budget of 90 million, and it only made 50 million, so it lost like $40 million. And I think that I could do more work. It came out on Christmas in '98. It probably just had a lot of competition, which I haven't done the research on what the competition is, but the movies this movie is I think it's better than the original, um, because so in this movie, Jill Young is with her mother. We don't know anything about the father, so they change it to the mother being alive, and the mother is like they make more sense in this story of things
Mhm.
in the remake. The mother is a primatologist, studies gorillas, and they live in Africa. And there's an infant gorilla whom Jill names Joe, and they have Joe's mother there. Well, a night, a group of poachers led by a dude named Andre Strasser, stormed the mountains, and they basically they kill Joe's mom, and then they kill Ruth. They kill Jill's mom, Ruth. So Joe and Jill are orphaned on the same night. So that's why Jill has this emotional connection to Joe. And then the mom makes Jill promise that she'll always protect Joe. That this gorilla is on his own. He has giganticism. Like I need you got to protect this kid. So that's how they get this bond. 12 years later, Joe is now about like 15 feet. He's 2,000 pounds, matching up to kind of the 40s level of whatever. And and gorillas are not accepting Joe as part of the family, and I'm glad that they added this in there, because he's very vulnerable to poachers. So gorillas don't want to be near Joe because they're scared that they'll get hurt. So Joe and Jill, like that's all they got. Um, then we meet Greg O'Hara. So Greg has been changed from a cowboy. There's no Max character. There's no movie character. It's just Greg, and he's a wildlife refuge director, and he's working at an animal conservatory in L.A. And he's played by Bill Paxton. And he gets there because he's heard of this legend of a giant creature there, and he's intrigued. So, so he goes there to try to kind of find things. He doesn't really know what he's going to find, but he wants to find something cool. So, in the midst of this, yeah, I lost my notes here. Yeah, so she meets Greg, and Greg and Joe get into a tussle, and Joe like takes a chain from one of the trucks that's chasing them and like pulls them. He makes it into a weapon. So that's why like later in King Kong movies you see like the chain. You see King Kong with the chain. I think from a boat fan, like they ripped that off of here. Um, but Greg says basically like poachers are going to come after Joe. Like he's only going to get bigger. It's going to get worse. They're already looking for him. You need to get him out of here. And Jill agrees, and they take him to the conservatory in LA where Greg works. And basically, like everybody falls in love with Joe, the whole staff. Jill is in charge of Joe. That was her agreement. And eventually, like Joe, it doesn't seem like Joe's very comfortable there. Like he's getting a little homesick. And that poacher from all the years ago that Joe bit his fingers off of, that killed Joe and Joe's, moms. He finds out Joe's there. He goes and visits. He causes a lot of problems for Joe, and makes Joe go into a frenzy. And then like the public thinks Joe's a threat. Yada yada. And basically Joe's going to be euthanized because like everybody's thinking he's a threat because these poachers keep messing with him. And the poacher's plan is basically like, I'm going to manipulate Jill to make her see my conservatory in outside Africa, and I'm going to take Joe and I'm going to harvest his organs for money. Like that's what we're going to do. So he manipulates Jill to think like Joe's not safe here because he's causing all these issues. Bring him to me where he can roam free in Africa and not be like in a cage system, and it'll be good. So Jill agrees to that because of the manipulation, and she's like, she goes on a truck with them and Greg decides to stay in Hollywood, which is horrible, but it's to lead up to Greg saving them at the end. And basically she's in this truck with Joe, and she finds out that like, oh, okay, so these guys are really the poachers. Like she sees the missing fingers on the dude, and then she puts it together. Yeah. So we get this like big scene around LA where like Joe like escapes the truck and he goes to the Hollywood sign, and like everybody's seeing Joe, and he lifts a jeep of like teenage girls that think they're gonna harm him and stuff. We get this whole thing. And then the big giant finale, if you will, is is hold on 1 second. They go to like the Palisades pier in LA, and there's this kid trapped on a Ferris wheel, and as they're trying to stop the poachers, they accidentally start a fire because you got to have a fire, like the original. And yes. And Strasser gets killed by Joe and electrocuted. And we're okay with that Joe murdered somebody. We're totally fine with that. And Joe saves this kid from the Ferris wheel. He climbs the Ferris wheel, grabs the kid, saves him, and then people are like, "Oh, he saved a child. Like, he's not a threat. He's a good guy." And Joe drops to the ground as the Ferris wheel knocks over, and we think Joe's dead. And Disney plays this pretty well. And then he like she Charlize Theron like wraps herself up into him. It's like, Joe, don't go. And then he wakes up, because it's a family film. We can't, Disney doesn't take chances with that. They only do that in animation with the Lion King and stuff. So that's how it goes. And then they move back to like Uganda, and we have this Joe Young reserve, and everybody's happy. And Mighty Joe Young, the gorilla, it was done in like total like animatronics by Industrial Light and Magic. Um, funny fun fact is Joe as an infant was performed by Vern Troyer. If you don't know who Vern Troyer is, it was Mini Me.
Really?
Yes. So most of the film, Joe is portrayed by a creature suit performer, John Alexander, who wore a radio-controlled animatronic gorilla mask and a full body suit created by special makeup effects artist Rick Baker. If you don't know who Rick Baker is, legendary makeup artist, did Walking Dead. He's a horror god.
Yeah.
And to achieve these scenes, Alexander often acted in miniature sets surrounded by blue screen, visual effects house, DreamQuest images, composite image footage shot earlier. Joe as an infant was performed by Vern Troyer. The filmmakers used 3 full-size animatronics. One with him like on all fours, one sitting down, and one in dead position. So it was a mix between animatronics and a dude in the suit, which I think is perfect. I think that's a perfect way to go. And sometimes they use a chimpanzee. This movie didn't do so well, but the whole point of bringing it up is that because of them doing Mighty Joe Young, we get Kong as this hero, as this this guy of hope, as this protector. Godzilla doesn't really get that view. Like, he's still the baddie. He's still, he's still this, that type of guy. So yeah, so Mighty Joe Young, I recommend watching the 98 version. If you find the 49 version, watch it once. But I think the newer one's a little bit better. Now, in a few weeks, we'll talk about King Kong versus Godzilla of the 60s. We'll talk about that Godzilla versus RoboKong. And then we will go into the new MonsterVerse and talk about the relationship there. So that might be a mega podcast. That might be a bit of a longer one. This one was a little bit longer, but I think we'll have fun. So, Steve, it's time for final words.
All right.
So, Steve, what do you think about King Kong, buddy? Like, what do you like about him? What don't you like?
I like that he's a giant ape. I do like him better as a more hero, sympathetic, like protector of the humans, like you said. I just think he's really cool.
Badass, for real.
Yeah.
Do you think that old school Kong is better or worse than current version Kong?
I like current version Kong all the way. He just looks awesome.
Yeah, he looks a bit better.
Yeah.
I like this Kong, like, with a little bit of scar over his eye and like more battle worthy. Like, I like that they've gone away from this like chasing women thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
So, which kind of answers our next question: do you like Beauty and the Beast angle, or do you more like him being a protector of humanity?
Protector, yeah, definitely
humanity.
protector.
Is King Kong overrated? Like, should there be, I guess to rephrase this, is there a more fitting kaiju for Godzilla to partner with?
No, I think he's pretty good where he's at. I think you can't have Godzilla without Kong. So, like, I think it's a proper team up and everything.
Yeah. You don't have to answer this question yet, but I want you to think about this question as we build up to the new film coming out at the end of March.
Okay.
Are you more Team Godzilla or are you more Team Kong? I want you to boil over that and think hard about it. I probably already know your answer, and you
Yeah,
probably
I
already
think
know
I
mine.
already know the answer already too. And I
Uh,
think I know yours I think. I could be
yeah,
wrong.
I I think I think with King Kong, I think that they need more. I think that every movie he does shouldn't be with Kong with Godzilla. I think they need to do a little bit more of him on his own, um, to
Give him
build
his
him up
own
more.
set of villains and stuff.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
otherwise he's just like a sidekick, and then he gets
Yeah.
overshadowed by King Kong, or he gets
Meet
overshadowed by
Godzilla.
Godzilla. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like when they did Skull Island, great, good,
Oh
great,
yeah.
great setting them up. Um, but then Godzilla got the other movie against all these other monsters, and and then we brought in King Kong later, and King Kong gets very overshadowed by
Yeah.
Godzilla. Um,
Like I
but
would like to see, which they may dive into in this new movie that's coming out,
sure,
more of like how Godzilla became just Godzilla, like, or not Godzilla, King Kong. Like what happened to his family. I think they'll dip into it with the introduction of Scar King, but I
yeah,
would like to see a full blown movie about that.
yeah. I think this movie is what you're looking for. I think
Okay.
they're going to get into the origins of this Godzilla and this King Kong and what happened.
Yeah, but I would like it in real, like a movie just on King Kong's family,
Sure.
how the Skull Eaters or whatever the monsters were called killed them all, who sent them. I mean, they'll dive into it, but I don't think they're gonna go into too much detail.
Well, we'll save it. We'll save
Yeah,
it for
save it.
that thing. But yeah. So next week, we're doing the history of the Ghostbusters franchise. It's very close to my heart. So excited.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. Because busting makes us feel good.
I still
Um,
have that song on my phone I played in my car.
I might be playing it soon too. Um, so we're gonna be doing we'll discuss Frozen Empire after that, and then we'll talk about the new Godzilla movie. And then I'm gonna take a little break for a while because April is my anniversary, and I'm gonna be on vacation for a few weeks. And getting much needed rest because I do have another podcast that is called Brian the Guys, where we talk about, comic books, superheroes, nostalgia topics. Now, if you like this podcast and you want more of Gravely Amusing, or you want to check out Brian the Guys, you can find us at Gravely Amusing on X, Facebook, Instagram, TikToks, TikToks, whatever. And you can find Brian the Guys on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. And if you want to find me as I discuss other stuff, you can find me on X, TikTok, Threads, and Instagram as the Man Child of Steel. Thank you, my cousin, for joining me, as I hope you had as much fun as I did. And thank you, listeners. I hope this podcast thrilled you. I hope it shocked you. And if nothing else, I hope it left you gravely amused.